Hi, I'm Cindy Robertson. I'm glad you joined me today. We're going to be continuing to sand today. I know it's not really a glamorous job, but it does necessarily need to be done. We did have the auction recently, actually, and a lot of the chairs that were not filled in the holes and re-drilled like I have done and showed you how to do that needed to be repaired before they went up to auction. So um, what I'm teaching you is really important and makes your artwork much better. So thanks for joining me, and I also throughout this video will be exploring the process in which we're going to decorate this chair, because I'm sharing that with you too. So thank you for joining me, and I'm Cindy Robertson, and we'll begin. Hi, you're back. This has been drying for a while, so now it's time to sand all of the spots that we touched up. And you want to make sure, because a lot of people don't do this step because it's messy, and they don't like sanding, which I agree, I'm not a big fan, but it does make a big difference when you fill holes that you sand, because some people think, I just filled just that one little hole and there's nothing around there. But when you go to finish with paint, you will see that there is indeed like a raised or ridge and stuff, and we really want that all smooth. So you do want to take this time to all right, we're back again. I keep turning this off. Anyways, you'll see that I've placed some branches around the chair because my original idea, and I don't know if it'll work, and that's what I'm still trying to work out in my head, is that I wanted to sculpt some branches around here, not so much all of these branches, but in some ways maybe do a trompe l'oeil through here for a shade or a branch coming over you. Again, feeling like you're sitting in a garden. I love trees, and so I always want to incorporate trees into my thing. Now these are birch bark, and I just got these from my yard, so they're not like perfectly shaped that we're gonna play with, but it gives me an idea of like, how do I want, I want it to curve, and I really just want it to be asymmetrical, meaning that it's not going to be balanced on both. I'm not going to do a tree. I'm not going to do it on both sides. I'm just going to do it on the one side here. And I'm probably going to come up from the armchair, the arm of the chair, and come around a little bit, and then do some draping in certain areas. But again, you can still see we have plenty of sanding to do, and I have time to think about how I still want to make this work. And sometimes, you know, you'll find when you get an idea that some ideas don't work. No matter how hard I try, it just may not come to pass. So, where'd my sanding paper go? So we're just gonna sing, what grip this is, 220, 120. So it's still a fine grip, but it's not so fine that it takes forever to take things off. You can use a 220, you can use a fine thing. And we may or may not finish with a 220. 120 is good enough. You don't want to start with 80 though. 80 grit is pretty coarse, and if you use 80 grit to sand some of this off, then you're still going to have to sand over that with finer grit, which you kind of, as the numbers go higher, the finer the grit. So if you're doing 80, then you need to do 120 and then 220, because sometimes the 80 can, especially this is pine, this is a soft wood, and this it can really cut into it. So I'm just starting with 120. I may finish with the 220 depending on if I see any other sanding markings, but I'll show you what that means. Sometimes it's easier. I've been doing it with the sheet. There's also sanding discs that are easy to work with. This one's so coated with drywall that I figured I'll just use the sanding disc, and I'll save myself another trip to the hardware store. And part of the process of doing things like this is as you learn what you want to do and what you need, sometimes there's more and more trips to the hardware store. So. I also may, I've been thinking about just priming the back and the sides and the bottom and all that stuff, and then leaving these arms raw, and I may stain them, especially since I want it to look more like a tree kind of thing. I don't know if it's going to work. I know, we'll see together as we progress on this chair. I don't know if it'll make a bit of difference or if it's just more trouble. But I like the knots in the wood, and I love painting on wood, and I love the natural wood too. I mean, even if it's plain, I love trees altogether. So it's just a respect for the wood for me. But I do know I'm going to mostly decoratively paint all of this, so it's easier to paint with when it's not, when I don't have to worry about like what I'm covering up or what I'm not covering up. But again, we will discover that together. So you'll see that you want to just make sure that that's my cat, that the sanding is really smooth. I don't know if you can really see that, it's hard. But you'll see where I haven't sanded, and right here, you'll see that. And you want to always go, when you're sanding, with the grain of the wood. You want to kind of rub over it, and you'll feel if there's still some more there. You don't always sometimes see it, but you can feel it with your fingers. And that's true when you're like caulking on a wall and filling holes on walls too. You really have to feel it. It's pretty smooth. I can still feel a dip in the... There we go. So we're going to do that like everywhere where I put the holes. And oops, this little area is a little trickier to get to because the graining is going down and it's right at the top of the chair. And you can kind of see it over here. See, it's going down, the grain. So I need to go this way and not this way. But it's right here, so it kind of keeps banging into them. But you can see I've gone that way, and you can kind of see it rubbing. I don't know if you can see that. It's pretty faint, but I can see that I did it already. So I might take the 220 grit if this doesn't work. I can go over, although it looks like it's pretty clear now. It's just hard to get your paper in there and go the right way. You can feel a divot in there. I may choose to fill that again a little bit. I mean, again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Some divots are fine, and some you can add to your painting in the end. It's not going to be hugely, but again, it doesn't have to be perfect. But it just depends on what kind of look I'm looking for, and I'm not sure what I want to do in this section just yet. I mean, if it's a bunch of flowers, it probably won't matter that there's just a tiny little gouge still. But again, this is kind of the nice thing about doing this prep work with the chair, because you get to know your chair or your piece of furniture or your paint or your canvas or whatever you're working on. this is probably going to sound pretty hooky pooky. Maybe a little out there, but I think sometimes the objects kind of tell you what they want or what they need, and I try to pay attention to that. I believe that there's energy in everything, and I try to listen to that. And that may be, you know, not your cup of tea, which is fine, but it's certainly part of my process, which is why I don't know exactly how I want all of this to look. I try to be more organic in my creations. I have an idea, certainly in my head, and I've jotted some things down, but I haven't taken a lot of sketches or anything like that. I just don't, I personally don't waste my time doing that. I would on a mural, or, you know, those are exacting, or a painting that I'm starting on a canvas or things like that. I do sketches, preliminary sketches, but on this chair, since I didn't know the exact size and shape and, you know, the wood that they would use and all that stuff, since it was given to us and created for us by somebody else, I didn't really go into all that trouble. I kind of just honestly kind of prayed about it and tried to get some vision of it in my own mind, and especially before I carve. I have to know exactly, it's why I'm working out with the branches and stuff, exactly how I'm going to attach birds and things, and in what medium I'm going to use them in before I start carving, because once you carve, you really can't put something back into it. So this is a good time to kind of review all those things and play with any materials that I have right now to see how I can foresee maybe things working or not working, and get a visual that way. If that makes any sense. Sometimes it's just all in here. It's hard to kind of express it, but I hope to guide you through these things with me. So thank you for watching. I'm going to keep sanding, and we'll keep talking about it. Thanks. I don't know if you can see. Do you see this? Where's my finger? I don't know if you can see that. But I've sanded it quite a bit. And there's still kind of a ridge on this side, even though it looks kind of smooth. You can kind of see this dark spot, especially this spot too. You can kind of see it as like a larger, darker spot here. You can see this as a larger, darker spot here. And that'll show through once we prime that and paint that. So that's why we want to sand. And the problem with sometimes using like a piece of paper like this is that I'm not getting an even stroke because it's with my fingers and not with like a block. So sometimes people do better with a block. And you can always make your own block by putting a piece of wood in here and wrapping the paper around the wood. If I had an extra piece of wood, I would show you how to do that. I still feel it. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll go get a piece of wood somewhere. Hi, I'm back. I did decide to get a block of wood that I can wrap my sandpaper around so I get more of an even sanding. So all I'm going to do is it's just a block of pine. And I'm going to tear this in half, basically. And wrap it. It isn't, you don't have to do it tight. You just have to wrap it around the block. It just gives you a little bit more surface, even surface. So when I was downstairs, I've been looking for my basswood for what we carve out of and what I'm planning on carving the birds out of. Although at least one bird I will be carving out of wood, I imagine. I don't know if I'll be doing all of them because we got these chairs kind of the last minute, and they still really wanted it in 2 weeks. Not that I think that's going to happen, but anyways, this is a block of basswood, and I knew I had some somewhere, and I just found them, so I just want to kind of show you. I'm not sure if I'm going to use these or if I'm going to get bigger ones. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do with the birds yet. I've looked into like actual size because I want to do a cardinal and its mate, and I want to do the cardinal because American Indian spirituality it's a sign of monogamy, and it's something that's important to me these days. And I always feel like something special is going to happen when I see a cardinal fly in my presence, or if I see them sitting in a thing, and I love to see the couples together. So I am doing a male and a female cardinal, certainly, and I'm not sure if I'm going to add another bird or if I'm going to paint a bird. Oh, there's my cat. And I don't know what size or what scale to fit this chair, because I guess a real cardinal, a male cardinal, is anywhere between 8 to 9 inches, 8 to 9 and 3 inches or something. That's pretty big. And I don't know if it would feel too overwhelming to have such a large bird, especially since I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to attach this bird yet once I carve it, how I'm going to do it. And since I'd like to have 3 birds at some point, but like I said, the time may be a differential in this project. But this is, you usually start with a block of wood, and it looks like something like this, or a little wider. I'm not sure how wide I need to do the bird, so I'm still figuring out that scale yet. But, you don't think of getting something like this to something like, something like this, although this is sculpted. That's just the head. But that is how you carve, and that's why you have to know what you're doing before you start taking away the wood, because you have to have it in your head what it looks like completely before you start taking away the wood, and letting the object that you see or feel shine forth, show you the way to go. Again, it's probably a little out there for some people, but that is how I do it. And I think a lot of sculptors do that. They kind of let the object keep talking to them and showing them what to take off and what not to take off. So if you're into that journey with me, we'll have fun. If not, then maybe you'll learn a different way to see things. Anyways, so that's the block of wood. And back to sanding. Again, sanding takes a while. And it's not a glamorous job, that's for sure, but it does need to be done. And sometimes it got a little on the edge, and I want to make sure that that's all cleared off. It doesn't take much to clear that off because it's not really that attached. It's just kind of annoyingly in the way. Okay, now I've sanded a little, the little touch-up parts, and we always want to, with a damp cloth, not too wet, but we want to wipe it down. Even though it's wood, it doesn't really like water so much right now, but we want to get all that dust off, because paint doesn't like dust or anything else. So I'm also going to move this up to my studio where I can close the door. And then I'm just going to wipe it all down. You're just going to gently wipe it. It doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take washing or anything like that. But so you can see, I don't know if you can see it, but dust on there from the sanding, and you always want to just kind of go over everything with a damp cloth. Pick up any residue. It's not too bad, really. Okay. Just arm, really. Notice I didn't go get more cloths. It's not really that big of a deal. It just one paper towel with some that little dampness comes out. Okay, I think we're able to move this now. Oops. It's starting to fall apart now. Okay, I'm gonna take. Okay, the chair is up in the in my studio. Okay, so thank you for joining me today. The next step, of course, is going to be priming and then painting. So next video will be up in just a little bit, and I will look forward to seeing you. Bye.